Vicar watches as the living shield Decarabia asks how Amducius can emit the specific energy of the Marquis of Discord. Vicar is shocked, wondering if the demon really has that power. A giant face made of blue energy appears in the air. Decarabia confirms he feels the great power of the first corpse. Andrus, leader of the 9 demon lords, Amducius angrily explains that because Vicar ruined their plans and hunted their kind, the remaining demon kings threw away their pride. The beast reveals they had to beg Andrus to borrow his great powers. Clenching his fist, which glows with blue energy, Amducius says that even a small part of Andrus's power makes them incredibly strong, warning Vicar that he is now the prey. The fight instantly explodes into a fast brawl. Shockwaves tear through the arena as Vicar's red aura and Amducius's blue lightning clash in heavy strikes. The demon's new speed and power quickly overwhelm the swordsman. Amducius lands a hard punch to Vicar's face and follows it with a strong kick. Not giving Vicar time to recover, Amducius leaps into the sky, gathering blue energy in his raised fists. The monster glares down at his target. He then slams into the ground with great force, breaking the earth and creating a large crater. Using the explosion and debris as cover, Vicar moves through the destruction, silently appearing behind the giant demon. With his red eye glowing, Vicar channels his aura to prepare a desperate counterattack. He unleashes a wide slash of red energy, aiming to cut the demon while trying to dodge its long reach. However, the power gap is too wide. Evading the blade completely, moves with incredible speed, reappearing behind Vicar and mocking him for being too slow. The giant demon charges the glowing crystal on its head, preparing a huge attack while shouting the Night Hound's alias. With a brutal strike, Amducius shoots a blast of blue energy that sends Vicar crashing into the stone ground, scattering debris. Standing over the destruction, Amducius admits there are limits to how long he can use this borrowed power, but he confidently states his body is strong enough to easily destroy a swordmaster. In the rubble, a wounded Vicar coughs up blood. Floating nearby, Decarabia nervously asks why he didn't use the shield's barrier to block the attack. Despite his injuries, Vicar replies that he is saving the shield for when he truly needs it, insisting he can handle the situation himself. Decarabia calls him a fool. Behind his mask, Vicar acknowledges the grim reality. Staring at his opponent, he silently admits he can barely keep up with the demon's strength, especially since this is only a small part of Amducius's true power. Looming over the injured swordsman, Amducius notices Vicar is still standing and mockingly praises him for being as stubborn as a roach. Refusing to back down, Vicar calmly says the demon is foolishly drunk on its new power. Leaving Amducius confused by the bold claim, Vicar reminds the monster of a fatal flaw. If Headmaster Winston dies or breaks their contract, Amducius will disappear. He asks why the demon chose to separate from its human contractor during battle. Bleeding but resolute, Vicar challenges his opponent, asking if pure arrogance is stopping Amducius from fully using his powers. Responding to Vicar, Amducius acknowledges that the swordsman knows the Decarabia shield remains loyal to its master. The demon explains he left his human contractor alone because he trusts him. He clarifies that he does not trust Winston as a human, but he trusts his terrible rage against the world. Amducius reveals he gave his power to Winston because the headmaster truly wishes for the world's downfall. The glowing purple heart in Winston's chest is revealed to be the Tree of Falling, which is the trigger to fully activate the demon's powers. Vicar is caught off guard by this, sweating as he realizes the dangerous item is in Winston's hands. Flashing a cruel grin, Amducius admits he set this up to watch humans destroy each other with his own eyes, claiming it would be a shame to miss the show. Meanwhile, Dolores stands frozen in horror as someone calls her name. She stares in disbelief at the mutated, crystal-covered man on the ground, asking if he is really her father. As her hand gently reaches for his face, her father's eyes widen in absolute terror. He scrambles backwards across the floor, screaming in fear and begging not to be hit. He frantically promises to obey any command. As Winston coldly watches from behind, trembling and pleading for his life, the mutated man cowers. Dolores watches him with pity and horror, softly calling his name. Humbert. Suddenly, Humbert blurts out a confession, leaving Dolores surprised as he admits he is responsible for everything. In shame and fear, Humbert reveals his corruption. He confesses to illegally getting money from criminals and cultists to ruin the opposing faction. He also admits he manipulated the Quo Vadis family by impersonating the Pope. Humbert flashes a twisted smile, admitting he stayed silent even when he knew innocent children were disappearing from the orphanage. Crying and laughing, he screams that he caused all those terrible deeds while the blue crystals in his body begin to crackle and glow. Hearing about her father's corruption, Dolores is left terrified, and looming over the mutated man, Winston coldly asks Dolores if she heard her father's confession. With the purple demon heart pulsing in his chest, Winston asks her to think about how many innocent lives were lost because of her father's greed to control the family. Winston's glowing red eye narrows as he grimly states, "The sacrifices have not stopped yet." As Humbert screams in agony and the blue crystals crack with energy, Winston reveals that the corrupted man is like the other criminals modified by Sati, and he will explode soon. Meanwhile, Bianca, Sancho and Piggy sprint across the ruined stadium trying to escape. The massive amount of mana inside Humbert will cause a huge explosion. Nearby, one of the Baskerville triplets runs for his life, carrying the young girl Pomerian. The blast is so powerful that it threatens to destroy the stadium and the surrounding region. Winston places his hand over the glowing purple heart, declaring that through this destruction he will carry out his own twisted version of justice. As Humbert screams in pain, Winston poses a cruel question to Dolores. He asks if she can still forgive her father after what he did, challenging her belief by asking if a monster can be redeemed. Overwhelmed by these revelations, Dolores stands silent. She bows her head, her eyes hidden in shadows, unable to say a word in response. Breaking her silence, Dolores firmly answers Winston's test with a single denial. Winston is initially surprised, but quickly closes his eyes, assuming her rejection of her corrupted father is only natural. However, his eyes open in shock when Dolores continues speaking. Surrounded by a bright golden light, she reaches out to him with compassion. She softly says that while she doesn't know what past trauma caused him such pain, she believes that even in this hopeless situation, he still has a chance to change his path and make the right choice. With glowing eyes, Dolores clasps her hands in prayer and unleashes a massive dome of holy energy. She shields herself and her mutated father within the golden barrier, bravely shouting for Winston to run before the explosion. As the holy light washes over the battlefield, a spark of blue lightning flashes across Winston's vision. The divine energy triggers a deeply hidden memory. In it, he sees a desperate man shouting to run while a blonde woman apologizes in tears. Clutching his face in confusion, Winston stumbles back, struggling to understand where these unfamiliar memories are coming from. Visibly shaken by the vision, Winston looks down in awe at Dolores, softly murmuring her name as she bravely protects her broken father. Dolores maintains her protective stance, keeping her hands over her mutated father as the blue crystals on his back crack and surge with unstable energy. Overwhelmed by the pain, Humbert collapses on the stone ground, crying that the pain is too much and begging to just explode to end his agony. Refusing to let him give up, Dolores commands him to hang on and fight through the suffering. She urges him to finally struggle, not for himself, but for everyone around him. She stands firmly beside him inside her golden barrier, as he continues to groan helplessly. However, the unstable mana inside him reaches its breaking point. Humbert lets out a final scream as blinding beams of blue light erupt from his cracking crystals. Tears fill Dolores' eyes and she looks on in terror, helplessly whispering a denial as the blue light begins to consume her. Watching from a distance, the Night Hound and Amducius instantly notice the surge of energy. Looking toward the source of the blast, a huge explosion of white and blue light completely covers Dolores and Humbert, threatening to wipe them out. Just as the explosion peaks, a mysterious figure wearing dark shoes and using a walking cane calmly steps into the bright light. Dolores looks up in surprise at the sudden intervention. The newcomer is the Pope. The Pope suddenly appears in a blinding light, leaving Dolores staring in shock. Panicking from the chaos, Dolores wonders how the Pope reached this dangerous battlefield. Dolores stays panicked as her mutated father, Humbert, crackles with unstable explosive energy right below them. Ignoring the danger, the Pope calmly places her old hand on Humbert's glowing broken shoulder. A golden aura calms the ground around them. The Pope stands next to the kneeling mutated man while Dolores watches nervously from a distance. Dolores looks on in total disbelief, realizing the Pope's touch has miraculously stopped the huge explosion. Now that the dangerous energy is gone, Humbert's crystalline body begins to crumble and fade into floating dust. The Pope quietly watches the glowing pieces float away into the air until he is completely gone. She then closes her eyes and puts her hands together in a short prayer. Turning back to the young woman, the Pope tells Dolores to hurry up and leave the area. With a gentle smile, the Pope reminds Dolores that she has someone important waiting for her. As she starts walking again, the Pope gives one last piece of advice. She tells Dolores not to hide her true feelings, but to accept whatever is in her heart. The Pope's words hit home. Doors blush slightly and nod with a new sense of determination. Trusting the Pope to handle things, Dolores runs across the ruined stadium. Behind her, the Pope walks straight toward the transformed headmaster, Winston. The Pope stands firmly in front of the giant headmaster, Winston. He glares down at her with a glowing demonic heart exposed in his chest. Winston stays dangerously quiet. His single red eye glows brightly as he looks at his new opponent. Looking at Winston with a calm stare, the Pope confidently says she will take over the fight from here. Headmaster Winston stares at the Pope and calls her by her full family name. He points out how funny it is that despite being holy, she comes from the same bloodline as the disciple who denied God 3 times. He rudely asks why her being here is any better than dollars. Winston warns her to give up if she just plans to talk him out of it. To his surprise, the Pope calmly agrees with the harsh words about her family. The Pope admits they are descendants of a traitor, but she explains that there is a reason the Quo Vadis family still has holy power. She starts to share a secret history passed down only in their family, completely unknown to the rest of the world. The Pope tells the secret story of the disciple who betrayed Prophet Loon. Crushed by guilt and shame, the disciple hid away deep in the mountains. There he spent his days carving a giant stone statue of the prophet all alone. After a long time, the guilty man was suddenly covered in a bright golden light as the resurrected prophet Loon appeared in front of him. The glowing spirit of the prophet walked up to the kneeling man and asked him 3 times in a row if he truly loved her. Filled with sadness and love, the crying disciple confessed his love for her again and again. Hearing his final tearful confession, Prophet Loon smiled warmly and started walking away toward the light. Panicking, the disciple quickly got to his feet and chased after her glowing body, desperately asking his lord where she was going. Turning back with a gentle smile, Loon said she was going back to the place she was attacked, to save the very people who hurt her. Hearing her endless forgiveness, the disciple cried uncontrollably. He felt deeply ashamed of the cowardice he showed when trying to save his own life. The Pope explains to Winston that this moment of complete shame and holy grace is the true base of their family's power. While Dolores runs away with a clear and focused face, the Pope says that the disciple's desperate question to the prophet, "Where are you going?" is the exact origin of their family name, Quo Vadis. Sprinting across the battlefield, Dolores runs with a look of deep understanding. She thinks about the Pope's gentle touch and her smart advice to stop hiding her true feelings and to accept what is in her heart. Sweating and breathing heavily, Dolores finally understands the deep meaning of the Pope's words. She realizes that her confusing feelings for the Nighthound are like water leaking from a broken pot. They are impossible to hold back but endless if she fully accepts them. Nearby, the heavily beaten and bleeding Nighthound prepares for a desperate final stand. Standing tall over him, the giant demon Amducius raises its huge hoof to deliver a crushing blow. The demon stomps down with incredible force, breaking the ground and sending a huge wave of rocks into the air. But as the dust clears, Amducius's glowing red eye suddenly widens in surprise. Dolores steps in just in time. She stands firmly in front of the injured swordsman, creating a strong golden shield that fully protects them from the demon's attack. Clenching her fist, which burns brightly with holy light, she fully commits to the path her heart chose. Accepting her true feelings, Dolores releases a huge wave of holy fiery energy. It washes over the Nighthound, giving him a powerful holy blessing. Staring down the enemy, Dolores fiercely calls out to the man she knows as Van, saying they will fight this battle together. Headmaster Winston suddenly grabs his head in terrible pain. He is overwhelmed by flashing blue lightning and desperate voices echoing in his mind, telling him to run away and apologizing, panting and falling to his knees in front of the Pope. A shaking Winston asks what she did to his mind. The Pope steps forward and gently places her hand on his face. She asks if in those nightmare memories there was really nothing left but human ugliness. Winston's eyes open wide in shock as she suggests there is more to the memories that the demon purposely hid. Looking down at him kindly, the Pope asks if there wasn't also a deep love hidden in that sad past. Winston screams in pain as a deeply hidden memory forcefully breaks through to the surface. On the day his family's home was attacked, a young Winston was carried away by his mother. Behind them, his father bravely fights back a violent armed mob of rioters trying to sell the noble child, buying them time to escape. As he is rushed away, young Winston reaches out helplessly toward his father. He is forced to watch the horrible moment his father is brutally stabbed in the chest multiple times by the angry mob. Running from the attack, Winston's mother, who was also stabbed in the back, falls onto the rocky ground. She covers her son with a heavy cloak, telling him to stay hidden while she goes back for his father. Terrified, young Winston reaches out and tightly grabs his mother's hand to stop her. Peeking out from under the cloak, the crying boy begs his mother not to leave, warning her that it is too dangerous to go back. Hearing his desperate begging, his mother stops and looks back at him with tears running down her face. Even with her deadly wound, she pulls him into a tight hug, using her body to protect him. She softly admits she doesn't know why such a tragedy had to happen to them. Bleeding and in deep pain, she looks lovingly into her son's eyes. She tells him that even though he is suffering, the world is not just a cruel place. It is much more beautiful and full of love than it seems in this dark moment. Crying as she holds him close, she admits her words might not comfort him right now, but she sincerely apologizes on behalf of everyone who hurt them. As her blood pools on the ground, she kneels with him in a final sad hug, offering a deep apology. But the sad memory is quickly stopped by a dark, familiar voice from the shadows, commanding him to deny. Another hidden memory breaks through the demon's control. It shows an unconscious Winston washed up on a dark sandy beach after a shipwreck. His wife, completely soaked and desperate, sits over him and pushes hard on his chest, crying heavily as she tries to save his life. Her desperate efforts finally work, and Winston violently coughs up a lot of ceotar. Falling back in huge relief, his wife cries out his name, so happy that he is alive. Tears run down her face as she gives a heartbreaking apology. She confesses her deep guilt and shame for acting like a coward on the ship, pretending not to know him at first to save herself. Suddenly, Winston gently touches her cheek and weakly tells her that it is okay. Smiling softly, even though he almost died, Winston looks up and tells her he forgives her. In the end, she bravely risked everything to come back and save him. She holds his hand tightly against her wet face, smiling through her tears as she apologizes one last time. She tells him she loves him, but right as she says it, the beautiful memory breaks into pieces. It is violently interrupted by the demon's voice commanding him to deny the truth. Back on the battlefield, Winston stares at his shaking hands on the stone ground, saying that he finally remembers everything. The demonic anger completely leaves his face, replaced by deep sadness. Tears run from his eyes as he realizes his memories were messed with. The people in his past truly loved him and sacrificed themselves for him. The Pope covers them both in a warm, glowing circle of holy light. She kneels down and gently places a comforting hand on his shoulder, telling him to finally forgive the people from his past. Looking at her with desperate, crying eyes, Winston asks if someone as sinful as he can also be forgiven. The Pope smiles warmly and kindly, promising him without hesitation that he can be forgiven, but the sweet moment is instantly destroyed. A sudden violent spray of blood splatters across the Pope's face, leaving her eyes wide open in absolute shock. The Pope stares in frozen horror at Winston. A massive hole was just blasted straight through his back and chest, completely removing the purple demonic heart that was keeping him alive.